The Element Wealth Studios up in Tupelo, Mississippi. We are at Ace Bolt and Screw today. Come by and see us. Joining us now in the Element Wealth Studios, Steve Holland, former member of the Mississippi House of Representatives. He represented District 16, which was Lee and Monroe County. Steve, thanks for coming on the show.
Well, it's great to be here and glad to have SuperTalk in the hometown of the king of rock and roll.
Absolutely. It's our pleasure to be here. How about this company, Ace Bolt and Screw? It's a good thing they're here in Tupelo. Fantastic
people,
organization.
Good independent business, and they do great work in our town.
Yeah, they
Keep
sure
us
do.
supplied, so I appreciate them.
Yeah.
Appreciate any small businessman these days. It's sort of tough.
Well, I was talking to the mayor, Todd Jordan, earlier on the show, and just commenting on the activity around the Tupelo area. Just drove a little bit up and down Main Street this morning before we came on the program here, and it's hustling and bustling. Looks like everything's in good shape.
Tupelo's always been a wonderful place to live and represent. I was born in the county from here and still live on the land that I was born on 67 years ago,
Wow.
as a matter of fact. But
Wow.
Tupelo's been a progressive town forever. We just, by and large, enjoyed excellent leadership over the years, and our people get together and talk about things and communicate, and it's a very charitable town. We've got so many private not-for-profit corporations that do so much for so many people here. So it's a good place to call home.
Yeah.
Real good place.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I haven't spent a few years in the legislature. Wanted to get your thoughts on this past legislative session. I'm sure you kept up with it a little bit. I have described it as a very active session. Lots of what I think were high-profile legislative matters taken up by the respective chambers, most of which was signed into law by the governor. Your thoughts?
Well, I went back to the Capitol one day. It's the first time I've been back in 3 years. I served 36 years, of course, in the House of Representatives.
Yeah.
And by and large, loved every minute of it. I served with great people down there. People like Senator Terry Burton, who sent me a shout out before I came on here. Terry,
Yeah.
I really appreciate you and I hope you're doing well with your health. But it seemed to be plenty of money this time, and that's always a good thing to do. It creates, when you've got a surplus of money, it creates a lot of dialogue and a lot of discourse as to how that money is going to be spent. But it seems like there was a pretty good job of distributing not only the state budget. I always was involved in health care, and it seems like Medicaid's funded, and that pleases me, and mental health got more monies, and health department, that kind of thing. The federal monies got somewhat distributed. I think the jury's still out on that. You can certainly tell that the leadership of the state of Mississippi is in the greater Metro Jackson area now, but
Yeah, exactly.
that's one of those things, you know, when McCoy and Ford and Holland and others of us up here reigned, we brought a lot to Northeast Mississippi, so that's not a sin exactly. But all in all, it seemed like to me they had a pretty productive session. I'm just damn glad I wasn't there. I'm retired, and I like it.
I got you. You like being retired?
I like it.
Oh, come on! You got to miss being in the House of Representatives.
No, sir.
You
Not one
Are you serious?
iota. No, I never think about it, as a matter of fact. Now, I have hordes of people up here who come to me still with their problems, and I try to help them as best I can. I think the agency people are finding out that I'm a has-been, and so they're not quite as receptive, unfortunately, to answering my request. But the bottom line is, it just seemed like a pretty good session. It really did.
Yeah.
We've got a different style of leadership now. It's all top down. When we control the legislature, we being the hillbillies from Appalachian, Mississippi, I think we more broadly disperse things than is happening now. But the legislature goes on and on and on. I mean, it just never stops, and the people speak to who they want to be their leaders, and they've chosen, and we live with it, and we take pride in it as best we can.
Yeah. Anything in particular that you'd like to see the legislature act on? Anything legislatively you'd like to see happen?
I helped start several years ago. I say several years ago, probably 4 years ago, the last year that I was there. We are the home of the Chickasaw Indians here, and the Chickasaw Incana Foundation is trying to raise money, and we've raised a lot privately. We've raised a lot through the nation itself that's contributed, and then the legislature was to give us $10 million this year, and we got $5 million, and we're grateful for that, and we've got a strong commitment that we'll get the rest of it next year. But you know, Mississippi's a rich state in the sense of tourism. People like to come here. We get a beleaguered name in many areas, but we have a lot of history here. And I think most people, American people, are Genesis people. They like to go back to origins, and so a project like the Chickasaw and Kana Foundation Museum Interpretive Center would bring thousands upon. We already have the largest tourist attraction in the state with Elvis's birthplace, and it would bring a lot of history, for one thing, together in one spot, but would have an economic spillover that would be incredible. So I'm counting on you guys next year. I'm going to come raise hell with you if you don't do it.
Well, I bet some of them are listening right now.
Well, I hope they are. They're great friends of mine. I don't mean that literally.
Absolutely.
I'm not being ungrateful. We had just planned on getting the whole thing this year, especially with the abundance of money, and it just didn't happen. But I understand how things happen.
Well, we've been talking a little bit this morning about the medical marijuana program in the state. The Department of Health, of course, is charged with implementing the program, and they're busy pumping out the rules and regulations on that. You ever see that coming? You anticipate?
Well, we could go back in the journal and see this, but I think I was the first person in the history of statehood to introduce a medical marijuana bill a quarter of a century ago.
I'll be darned.
Yeah, it's been a long process.
Sure.
But I think the legislature did exactly what legislature should do. They responded to a citizen initiative. That might be my disappointment of the session, that they didn't finish the initiative process. Biggest disappointment, because I really believe in the people's right to speak, and if they can't speak through their elected representatives, they ought to have a vehicle to come through. But it's interesting. Today's 420.
Yeah, exactly. We've been talking about that today.
We've been talking about 420 today.
Yes, sir, we have.
And you know, I mean, I think at some point it'll be legalized, federalized, all the way around. But I've seen people. I've always had a penchant of helping people who had physical and mental infirmities, for the matter, and I think medical marijuana is going to go a long way to resolving some pain issues and hopefully cutting down on this excessive use and abuse of prescription pills and pain medications and that kind of thing. I'm an undertaker, and oh my God, we're having so many drug deaths now, and people anywhere from 20 to 35 and 40 years and older, for the matter, but especially in that age group. And it often is around taking too much pain medication. So that is a real issue in this state, and we'll see what medical marijuana does. But it's here, and I salute the Board of Health and the Department of Revenue for the work that they put into it. I think by and large the legislation that was passed is pretty darn solid, and I've got a lot of faith in these regulating agencies that they'll keep the right tabs on it and the right controls and regulations.
Another big piece of legislation, of course, Steve, was the tax reform that went through. That was
well, I would have voted against that.
Yeah, I figured you would have.
Yeah,
but that was batted back and forth.
Well, it's batted back and forth. I mean, I've spoke vehemently. It's pretty interesting. The morning that they passed that, somebody sent me, just randomly, I can't even remember who it was, the speech that I gave in the last major tax cut, largest tax cut in the history of the state. And it basically centered around the fact that the government plays a necessary role in our people's lives, especially in impoverished people like we have. And I think there would have been better ways to do that, like just give the taxpayers a bonus instead of cutting your infrastructure. And I might live long enough to see the negative ramifications of this. Of course, the legislature meets every year, so they can do what they have to do. But this was a big political win for the GOP, and they've got control. I mean, I sat in the super minority, and it's not a bit of fun, by God, to be in the super minority. So you just lose out. It's what you do, but you keep your voice active. And anybody, I don't know where that speech is. I don't know if it went viral or what, but I thought it was one of my best in 36 years. And I did win the Golden Tongue Devil Award 3 times by the Clarion Ledger. So it was a hell of a speech, if I have to say so.
Absolutely. We got just a brief second here. Medicaid expansion. Your thoughts on that, real quickly?
It's the greatest travesty in public policy that the state of Mississippi's had in a long time. I mean, you got to, you got to take care of your people.
Yeah. Steve, pleasure having you on the program.
It's good
Thanks
to
for
see you,
coming to
Gerard.
see.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
absolutely.
Yes, sir. We'll talk
Davenport,
soon.
hello. I'm still alive. I'm glad you are. If you die off, I'm an undertaker. You call me.
We'll take a break right here on Middays. We're in the Element Well Studios at Ace Bolts Group, Tupelo, Mississippi. Stay with us.